the earnout and that you didn't hit it. And I want to talk about how difficult and challenging earnouts can be, because I think that this is something that a lot of founders who sell go through and we don't always talk about. So talk to me about after the sale, we go in and here you are facing.
And I'm happy to talk about this because this is the part that I think that, to your point, we don't talk about. And we don't talk about it because we think we're a failure, which I went through that for a long time. I really felt like I was a failure until someone was like, you're one of 1% of women who have sold their company. You didn't fail. But it really took me a long time to get there. So when we moved into the company, for the first couple months, maybe the first quarter, I was like the shiny new object. They were taking me to all the different markets because they own a million different companies. And they were trying to leverage me with other deals. And it really wasn't working. It wasn't they didn't seem to have a plan for me at the company. And my team didn't even have computers until 6 months in, company computers, which is crazy to me. We weren't even integrated, so it was very evident to me that I was going to have to be my own advocate and I was going to really have to push back. But there were things that were in my contract that didn't come to fruition, and there were things that were not in my contract, but they said would happen that they wouldn't put in my contract that didn't come to fruition. So I say this for two reasons, because a lot of people are like, well, why didn't you sue them? It's really hard as an individual to sue a multi-billion-dollar company with a legal team the size of, a small corporation. And they knew, I believe, I'm hypothesizing, they knew that I was not going to use every last dime that they paid me for the sale of my company and all of my hard work to turn around and sue them. I have in writing and in emails that they were in breach of my contract. And I have that. There was a moment where I was really pushing back on them and I was threatening to leave, and we were trying to reopen my contract and to add an addendum to it.
Yes.
And we had an agreement that we were going to do that, and COVID happened. But the interesting thing about COVID happening was I ended up saving a $1.5 million deal with Target that was supposed to be in store, and I had the idea to make it a virtual event before virtual events were even a thing, and I saved that revenue, and they did not reopen my contract, and they should have. But there were a lot of bumps in the road, I think, on both ends. And in the beginning, and had that first year been a little bit smoother and operated like the second year, I do believe we could have made my earnout. And it was a very hard thing, and it was a very emotional thing because I felt oh my God, they bought my baby and they're not taking care of it. And to them, it was just an acquisition, but to me, it was my livelihood. Around 2020, summer of 2020, it was very evident to me that my values didn't align with theirs in a lot of ways. And I was I need to start planning this exit strategy because this is just not working. And I saw that they were not going to reopen my contract. And I felt why am I working for someone, yes, I had a nice 6-figure salary. It was great, especially during COVID when people were being let go, and I had the flexibility to work and I was doing still something that I loved and believed in. But I was I cannot do this forever. I have so much more potential. And that's how I felt.
I want to know if during the dating period, you said it happened very fast. Were the red flag, looking back, in a marriage that doesn't work, if you look back, you're oh man, I don't know. As somebody who had an early divorce, when I look back, I'm oh, what the heck was I thinking there? Were there red flags that you missed?
There weren't. Early on in the dating period, they were amazing to me. There were not red flags. I think the biggest red flag was through negotiations. There were a couple things they said no to that I wanted, but I was willing to compromise on because I was willing to make the deal. And let me tell you, the one thing people ask me all the time is do you regret it? I don't, because keep in mind, I had a business that was largely based on in-person events, and all of my competitors went out of business during COVID, and we did not. I don't, because I would have gotten zero for this business, and I would not have gone through the experience of selling it had I not negotiated this way. So there were a couple things, sure. I will tell you when I started realizing was when the woman who led my acquisition left very quickly. She left 6 months after, and I was oh my God, this woman kind of left me high and dry. And the woman she reported to, I think, saw that I was being a little difficult. Like, I was asking a lot of questions, and I was asking for them to reopen my contract. And I was saying, you didn't meet your need here. And she pawned me off on someone else. And literally, I'm not kidding when I tell you this, I didn't hear from this woman for the last 18 months of me being at this company. And she was the president of the division of the company. Later on, she came back to me and apologized. I got an apology in my LinkedIn. And, you know, like, I just, as a leader, you can't, like, you just can't do that. And, like, yeah, she had someone very capable that was running my business and helping me, and she was amazing, but she also wasn't in charge of the sale. And the person who was running my business at the time, this is actually crazy, didn't know anything about social media and was not on social media. And that was our whole business. And so she would, like, say things to me and tell me to do things. And I was like, that's not how it works.
Yeah. It's very, very hard, I found, when you give up control of your business, but you're still there, and you have people who have no idea about what you do or how you do it, telling you what to do. It's just a very, very uncomfortable position. Did you stay through the entirety of the contract of the earnout? No, you left.
Here was the thing. I started the conversation. I told my manager in January of 21 that I wanted to leave. And, like, I don't know if it was like no one believed me. Like, I don't really know. She, like, ignored me, essentially, for a long time. And I told her again, and she ignored me. And then I remember very vividly, I was sitting in my parents' driveway in Detroit, and I was on the phone with her. It was Memorial Day weekend. And I said, I just want you to know that July 23rd is going to be my last day here. And so if you would like to address it and talk about it, and that would be awesome, because a lot of the knowledge of the brand is still in my head. You have not extracted it, including the Instagram password, which you don't know. No one knew it. I was the only one who had it. And I said, and so, you know, we have to come to an agreement. And, you know, we started this negotiation, and they wanted me to consult. They came back. I had said to them, I will stay till the end of the year for this amount of money. And they were like, we don't pay people to leave. And I said, okay, so come back to me with some kind of opportunity. And they were like, we'll pay you to consult for X amount of days. Like, give us your rate. And I gave them my rate, and they were like, no, we'll pay you half that. Half. I was like, fuck you. I literally was like, fuck you. No, like, I'm not taking that. I'm worth more than that. You need this information. If you want it, we can have it. These conversations with our lawyers, with everything, went until the night before my deadline to them. And what ended up happening was we were on this call, and the two male attorneys were in a pissing match with each other about all this stuff. I said, stop. I said, it's enough. I said, I just want to tell you this. I said, I don't want your fucking job. I don't want to work at your company. I don't want to be there. I said, but I do want to make good for my employees and for the millions of people in our community who have come to rely on me every single day. You need me for that. So the agreement is going to be either this, this, and this, and you remove this, and you pay me this, and I will consult until the end of, I think it was the end of August or beginning of September, and you can get all this information, or I'm going to leave tomorrow. And I said, and that's it. And, like, that's just what it's going to be. And he was like, well, I need more time. I said, you are out of time. You have asked for more time.
You gave them time.
Out.
You gave them time.
And I said, and I'm done. I said, I am done. My kids are going to camp this weekend, and I am going to drop them off without this hanging over my head. And by 7 p.m., I had my revised contract on my desk, and we signed it, and I ended up consulting for them. It was like 10 hours a week until the beginning of September. And I will tell you, the very last day, the very last thing that they got was the Instagram password. And when I closed my computer, my phone rang, and it was the woman who was kind of like my liaison at the company at the time. And I remember I said to her, I was like, I got to call you right back. When I had closed my computer, I had a very physical, like, visceral reaction.
Yes.
And I fainted. I blacked out at my desk, and I called my husband. I was like, Daniel, I was like, I fully believe it was like the release of all this pent up stress. Before I became a consultant, that's when I announced my departure, and no one knew at that point that I was leaving. And so during that consulting period, it was kind of like a mourning period for me. Like, I was sitting Shiva. I came to terms with the fact that I was no longer going to be the face of Bump Club anymore and that I was leaving. And so when I did finally close my computer on that last day, I was okay. I had gone through that process. I had mourned. I realized that this wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be. And it took some time for me to understand that it was exactly what I needed it to be.
I can completely and totally relate to this as the negotiation after my own earnout and exit, and the feeling of the, oh shit, like when you close the computer and like how wild it is that you're suddenly free and it leaving your body, like almost like the toxicity of it, right? It's like that moment and the like, yeah. And also like the hard parts of it and the good parts of it, right? Like the goodbye, the whole, it's wild.